All right, everybody, congratulations. We made it to the end of the quarter. Good job. We all survived. This is going to be my speech presentation for the final of the Communications 320 class over our interview project. So let's get it going. So in this speech, I will be discussing the outcome of my 2 professional interviews. I'm going to be referencing the information that I learned, the unexpected insights, lessons I learned about interviewing, additional insights and recommendations into what I might do differently in the future. So the information that I gathered and was able to gain, my 2 interview participants were Meg, who is a real estate agent, works for a local real estate agency as an independent contractor, and the other one was Jordan, who is a childhood lead prevention specialist with the Washington State Department of Health. Going into the interviews, my goal was just really to find out information about each of their fields, but my goal specifically with each of them was different. With Meg, it was to interview her and to find out what it looks like to work as an entrepreneur who runs her own business and who operates as an independent contractor and kind of has that, leeway of someone who can operate independently. With Jordan, I wanted to find out what it's like to work in a larger, more bureaucratic organization and to discuss what communication challenges they face working remotely because they work with a remote team. So much of what Meg was able to tell me about the real estate market aligned with the research that I did during the phase in which I was looking up questions to have for the interview and doing market research. She was able to offer a lot of information about the field, especially because she entered that field during the 2008 recession. And she was able to talk a lot about what volatility in the market looks like and how you have to adapt and change over time in the real estate market, as well as someone who is in a more independent contractor position as opposed to someone with a more traditional career-based role, or organizational-based role, I should say. With Jordan, they were able to give me a lot of information about what the Washington health system looks like and what it actually takes to get legislation pushed through in an efficient and timely way. So I had a couple of just unexpected insights. A few that came up. Meg was able to speak to the necessity of networking and social media engagement in her role and her line of work, which the importance of word of mouth and not only referrals from former clients, but from others in her field is not something I had really considered. While I've worked in a sales position before, I hadn't really thought as much about someone in her position who is so reliant on that social media marketing and those word of mouth referrals and what that might look like as someone who is having to consistently pursue your own client base. Excuse me. An unexpected line of discussion that I had with Jordan was less so about their actual field, and we actually had a really in-depth conversation about their experience as a semi-recent graduate of graduate school. So I was able to pick their brain about the experiences they had, the pros and cons maybe of going or not going, the pros and cons of going where they went. They also were able to go into a lot of the challenges of working in the public health sphere that I may not have previously considered. They spoke a lot to the difficulty of showing the value of invisible labor. It's really hard to show the public that the money, this massive amount of money that's being spent on, health programs and, lead prevention programs. It's hard to show that to the public until people can't really see it until someone has gotten sick or something bad has happened, and then the fix can be implemented, but at that point it can be too late. It's hard to show that something prevented lead poisoning or prevented cancer from happening, and that's a big part of their job, is developing that awareness. There were a couple lessons that I learned just generally about interviewing. One of the insights that I did gain into the interview process was just that it isn't nearly as scary or intimidating as I thought it was going to be. After the initial introductions, the conversation flows pretty easily, and asking follow-up questions comes pretty naturally. I found myself really just having to, or being able to have a very candid professional conversation with both of these people. It didn't really feel forced or cold at all. It was, and just asking consistent follow-up questions was so easy because both of them are so knowledgeable in their field. Some of the additional recommendations that I might have, there were a few things that I would change given the opportunity to do so again, or I suppose that I will change when interviewing in the future. The first is in choosing a location. My first interview was in a public coffee shop, and while that location worked really great for the interview itself, it made it very difficult to hear the audio on the recording. In the future, I would probably choose a different location that, even if it was still in the same location, I might choose different seating where we could set the phone closer or set it up higher, or just pick somewhere quieter in general. Another thing that I would do is to set the meetings further in advance. While I had gained my participants' commitment or to doing the interviews pretty far in advance, as we all did, the interview dates themselves, I had to do some back and forth, which took up more time than I expected. One of my original interviewees left town unexpectedly for the holidays, and I ended up having to slot one of the ones I ended up interviewing as a backup. And if I had scheduled both interviews further in advance, that might have been avoided. Excuse me. So, to conclude, all in all, the interviews went well, and I learned a lot from the process. I learned about the real estate industry and entrepreneurship from Meg. I learned about working for the state government and working with a remote team from Jordan. I was able to develop my skills as an interview, and I really look forward to being able to carry those skills with me and build upon those skills in the future as I walk through my professional career. So, thank you very much.